Hello, everyone. It's reached 10 o'clock Pacific, and we're going to go ahead and get started with the webinar here in just a few seconds. I want to welcome everyone who's come to join our webinar. My name is Todd Beauchesne, and I'm a Senior Technical Architect with Snowflake Computing. I'll be our host today. I'm grateful to have with me from Tableau, Jeff Huckabee, and a team from Rulala as well. We're going to open up with a poll question while we're waiting for everyone else to get on and giving everybody a chance to get logged in and set up. And the first question we're going to ask is, what piqued your interest in joining us today? We'd like to know a little bit about our audience, and we'll give you about 30 seconds to answer the question here, and then we'll actually get started with the webinar content. So based on our poll findings today, we're seeing a lot of analysts, which is great. We love to have analysts, and I'm sure you guys will be very interested to see what Rulala has put together. We do have a few DBAs and some managers, data managers, and others who consume the data in business. And so very much data has become a very wide-ranging topic of interest for a lot of people. So again, my name is Todd Beauchesne, and I want to welcome you. I'm with Snowflake Computing. I want to welcome you to our webinar this morning. We're very grateful to have Tableau joining us, as well as Rulala, to share with you the message of analytics in the cloud and how to do customer 360 analytics. So we're going to begin with a brief welcome by Jeff Huckabee from Tableau, and then our team from Rulala is going to walk us through their journey to 360 analytics in the cloud. And then I'm going to end with a brief coverage of the Snowflake architecture and a little live demo of actually connecting to Snowflake from Tableau. A few housekeeping items. Please use the Q&A buttons at the bottom of the window here to engage with us. There will be a Q&A at the end of the session, and we'll be collecting questions throughout. And we will, please direct your questions at those that you would like to answer them, and we'll moderate that. We will have this recorded session available in 24 to 48 hours, and we'll send it to everyone who registered. And one other thing is, during the webinar, you'll be able to download some great resources directly from this webinar platform. And so please, feel free to reach out if you need anything. And again, I'm Todd Beauchesne, a Senior Technical Architect at Snowflake Computing. So happy to have with me Jeff Huckabee, who's a Market Segment Director for Tableau for Retail and Consumer Goods. We also have Eric Roche and Matt McGlynn from Rulala. We're so happy to have them here today with us. And I'm going to turn it over to Jeff now.
Hello, everybody. First of all, welcome. And I'd like to thank Snowflake for being such a wonderful partner. And I'd like to thank Rulala for being such a great customer of ours. So very quickly, we released a cloud study earlier this year, and one thing that you'll get out of the presentation today is bullet point number 3, where we're seeing an increase in IT actively partnering with business users. And I think that Rulala has done a phenomenal job of doing that, and IT and business working together. And we see that continuing, that trend. And personally, having worked in the business and IT before in the past, that's not always the case. But we're very excited about what we're seeing from a trend as more and more organizations are moving to the cloud. We also are seeing, from a retail perspective as well, a multitude of different things that are happening within the retail space. But one of those is omnichannel data integration gets exciting. And you'll hear some of that today from a Rulala perspective of how they're able to get information that was previously siloed. They couldn't analyze all the data that they need to. And utilizing Snowflake, they're able to do that very, very quickly and easy with data at mass. So we're very excited about that, and we'll see a continuation of that in the future as well. So I also wanted to bring up that we're very excited through our customer feedback that once again we're named a leader in the 2017 Gartner Magic Quadrant. The industry overall has seen a lot of shakeout over the last couple years as people are moving to enterprise self-service visualization versus legacy BI reporting. And so we're happy where we are there, and we will continue to fight to remain there and to provide value for our customers. We also announced right prior to NRF that out of the NRF top 100 retailers, we're now 73% of those are Tableau customers. And we're also lucky to call the top 15 are also 100% Tableau customers. So that makes us very, very excited. So before I pass off to our friends at Rulala, I'd love for you to engage in this survey. So select which data sources you need to analyze today. Mobile customer-facing applications, traditional applications such as point-of-sale, e-commerce applications, Salesforce, CRM, billing, structured data, and then or weblog data from a website, or maybe other. I'll give just a few seconds for you to answer, and then we'll click and see the results. And we're seeing a lot more diverse data as we go, and people utilizing cloud technologies, utilizing our cross-database join technology to be able to bring those together. So there we go, traditional applications. It's interesting, point of sale, e-commerce applications, Salesforce, CRM. So at 85%, it's a pretty commanding lead. So thank you for the participation. And now I would love to pass it over to a great customer of ours, and Eric and Matt with Team Rulala.
Thank you, Jeff, Todd, and welcome everyone. This is Eric Rush talking, and Matt and I are very excited to be here today to share with you all our journey to cloud analytics. Just as an opener, a little bit about Rulala. We are an e-commerce website. We've been in business since 2009, and our mission is to create the most engaging online off-price style destination, connecting world-class brands to the next generation shopper. We are a members-only site, so we know a lot about our members, which I'll share with you and Matt will today. We are also, because we're a flash sales site, we are producing really a different look and feel to our site, and producing and sharing or selling different products almost on a daily basis. So it makes the dynamicness of the site very important to analyze. It's one of our kind of critical needs that we've been challenged with. Where did we begin? Back in 2009, shortly after the business was started, we started collecting data, and we did so into a traditional relational data warehouse. So our transactional systems are actually real-time streaming the data in to our data warehouse, and on an hourly or so basis, we're transforming that data into our data warehouse into a dimensional model, which I've simplified here for the audience, and think of it as orders surrounded by your product, your member, and various other bits of information. And we like to think of that as our mountain of data. As the business matured and our analytics evolved, what we realized that we were missing were the data that was not so easy to capture. And so in early 2015, we looked at the maturing landscape for big data. We selected a Hadoop platform, and we introduced the Ru Data Lake. And what we captured here is the non-traditional transactional data. So what we're looking at is the large volume of email data that we send out and receive on a daily basis, and the site activity data from both our website and our mobile application. collecting all of that clickstream activity, as well as some additional marketing partner data that we did not have a structure for. So we did what many customers are doing with data lakes, which is we threw all this data into the data lake and considered that mission accomplished. The third dimension of what that we want to talk about today is our reporting and analytics. It's great to have data, but really it's the utilization of the data that helps to give the business insights and to drive the business. So what are the flavors of reporting we have? We have operational reporting. So I mentioned that our transactional systems are streaming data into our data warehouse real time. So we were able to provide, point of sale type information on a real time basis, et cetera. We also have connected Tableau to much of the data warehouse data. Because of the large scale of even our transactional data, we utilized our Tableau server to cache the data in what many of you, if you're using Tableau, know of as Tableau extracts. So we were not able to get live real-time data on a daily basis. We were bringing data in to Tableau, where it was then very performant for analytics. But some of the constraints with that are that we had to bring in aggregate data even in some cases. So we kind of tuned our capabilities to tuned our solution to the capabilities of the platform. The third very important component of what we needed to support is ad hoc analytics. And we have a large, diverse group of business analysts with varying technical skills who have varying degrees access to our data to write ad hoc queries and answer questions that we haven't yet created polished solutions for in say, Tableau. And they also use Tableau Desktop to answer some of those questions. We also have an emerging small department, our data science team, and they too have been looking to answer some of these questions. The important thing to note here is that our ad hoc analytics was not able to utilize fully our data lake data. We had kind of created a walled garden or a wall around the lake, so to speak, so that they weren't able to access that data. So we needed to find a solution for that. So some of the challenges with the data lake and the data warehouse was and is that the data is not in one location. So as mentioned earlier, we have two silos, if you will, where the data lake data had the unstructured data and had not really gone through an ETL activity inside of the data lake, and our data warehouse has all of the transactional data. The data latency with regard to how long it would take the data to really be brought into one location. So what we did was we took the data out of the data lake and then brought aggregates into our data warehouse. But that turned into a daily, if not more than 1 day cycle. So we weren't able to see the email data or the clickstream activity data at the same time that we had our transactional data available to us, which led to blind spots where we could see the orders coming in, but we couldn't see the people visiting the site until a day or so after that had occurred. Another facet of the solution that we had in place is the technical skills required. The complexity of setting up a Hadoop platform and maintaining it put us in a situation where we were spending more time caring feeding for the actual technical platform and not spending the time that we'd like to on innovating and building solutions for the business. The last thing is the unacceptable query performance. The data warehouse was really tuned more for our ETL processes, so we had to give our analysts the ability to query the data warehouse, but in a way that didn't impact our ETL processes. So our analysts were finding that queries were taking hours to run, and that was innovating their ability to analyze the data effectively. In talk a bit about the business challenges or business needs. This is a consolidation, really, of all the data sets that I just talked about. So we call it the shopping funnel, which is very common in the retail model. What we really wanted to do is really understand, what emails are being opened by our members, what are being clicked on, and thus they're coming to the site, and then where are they spending their time on the site and ultimately making a purchase. So really being able to see the complete picture of our customer and the activity of the customer was something that we really saw as a critical success factor, and that was hard to do in our current solution, given the volume of the data and the disparate silos that we had mentioned. So I have this mountain of transactional data. I have this lake of non-transactional data. So what's the solution to meet the business need, and all business needs? Just to describe aspects of the solution, really it was imperative that we have all this data in one location, in the right format, and in a timely basis available for analysis. We also wanted to make sure that the analysis would be fast, so that the people who were querying doing ad hoc queries or using our Tableau dashboards were able to get the information they were looking for, speed of thought, so to speak. To add to the challenges, the goal is to solve the problems that we have today, but also to be able to scale and grow with the business. So as the business continues to innovate and expand, we wanted to be able to expand as well. And what that means is that our data platform today, tomorrow maybe 3x the size. So how do we grow with our successfully growing business? Another challenge is how do we reduce the time and cost to build solutions so that we could actually stay abreast of the business innovations. And then the last is, build a solution or enhance the solution, but still make it familiar to our analysts. So we didn't have a desire to teach them all new programming skills, et cetera. So SQL is the language that they understood. So how do we keep it familiar to them and still accessible via the tools they love, such as Tableau? So some solution alternatives that we looked at was just figure out how to make this work better, faster. Press the reset button and restart on both fronts and come up with a new solution in all ways. Or the third is really pick out what's working about the current solution and then rebuild what isn't. So our journey began in 2016, where we first identified alternatives. I won't speak to all those choices that we looked at in addition to Snowflake, but suffice it to say we're here today to talk about Snowflake because we found that really met and exceeded all of the needs that I had described previously. We started the journey in late Q2. By the end of Q3, we had successfully migrated all of our data lake data and business data sets that we had been capturing there. All of our data warehouse data we also lifted and shifted up into Snowflake, and really now had the complete platform by the end of Q3. In Q4, we embarked on an initiative to utilize that data in a way that hadn't been utilized before, and so we had our data science team build a personalized email stream, which looked at their each member's individual clicks and interest in, say, brands, to, on a daily basis, deliver to them a more personalized email. In 2017, we're continuing and expanding our data science activities, and then we're also looking at migrating a lot of our existing Tableau functionality to utilize Snowflake more directly and extensively, as well as other cloud usage of Tableau potentially. Quickly on the slide, showing the overall solution, we are using Telium to capture both mobile application and website clickstream activity on a streaming basis. We're bringing that into Snowflake every 15 minutes. Our email activity is more periodic and daily in nature, so we're bringing that all in directly to Snowflake. And the key points here is that we're not only bringing in the raw data, but we're also doing the transformations as well. So really meeting that goal of right format. So we're conforming the email and the clickstream activity to the members that we know of coming up from our data warehouse, which most of the data is coming up from the data warehouse on an hourly basis. The two ways in which we interact with that data from a Tableau perspective are live queries, directly connecting to the detailed data that we have in Snowflake, and Tableau is still, in many cases, consuming data from the data warehouse platform. And at this point, I would like to turn the presentation over to Matt, who will be giving us a live Tableau demo.
Thanks, Eric, and thank you all for joining. So what I'm going to do is kind of walk through a number of dashboards that we built, leveraging both the site activity data and the what we call the boutique or the sales data, as well as some of our member data all in one place. Again, removing those silos. We're going to pay specific attention to some members who joined around Black Friday. Just kind of like the sort of takeaways that all of this is done, and I think this is a little bit of a reiteration, but we've really drastically reduced the time that is required for analysts to both prepare and analyze data. Eric had hinted at this, but in some cases our marketing analysts were waiting days for queries to come back before they even knew if they had the right data set when they were doing some more advanced analytics. Those day-long queries now take minutes. And in some cases seconds or speed of thought in this new platform. So it's really opened up our ability to analyze and then iterate on that analysis to get at sort of fine-tuned marketing programs for our members. The other sort of big takeaway here is, and Eric had also mentioned that, as we moved off Hadoop, we're not needing to write MapReduce code. When we layer Tableau on top of our Snowflake data, we no longer even need the end user to understand how to write a SQL statement. They're really dragging and dropping the information that they need. They're creating table joins if they need to, all within the Tableau platform. And what that has really done, and Jeff had touched at this a little bit before, is we work in conjunction with the business units, but we've really, the IT end of things we've removed the roadblock, and what we really are is a conduit to just provide that information to the end user so they can make the effective the decisions and analysis that they need to do their job. So I'm going to hope that everything works well here on the screen share. And then we'll get into it. A couple other things before we get into the share here is that RuleLaw really differs from most online retailers in that every day we are launching upwards of 25 boutiques. And these are essentially flash sales. We call them boutiques. I apologize. I'll probably use both sale and boutique in the next 10 to 15 minutes as I walk through these. We launch these at specific times, typically at 11 o'clock and at 3 o'clock Eastern. What we're trying to do here is drive our members to come back to the site multiple times during the day. What I'm going to walk through is actually sitting on data that's effectively live. It's streaming in about 15-minute increments. The data set is over 1.3 billion rows of data. And again, it's combining both our site activity data with some of our, effectively our on-premise data that we have pushed up into Snowflake around these sales, metadata around these sales, the boutiques themselves, the sales themselves, what the transaction consisted of, as well as member-specific information, for instance, which member cohort we may have placed a member in. So let's get into everything works here. Start our screen share for our first dashboard. There's the live streaming is in, and we are good. Okay. So our first dashboard here to orient you is looking at overall site visitation. So what we're looking at is by day, effectively an indicator of site traffic. The blue line represents all of our members, and the red line, which is below, represents only the members that joined on that day. Again, we are a private sale flash sale website, so you actually can't get through the door until you give us your email. The bottom chart here is showing you specifically which boutiques were visited on any given day, and this is an interactive dashboard. So a couple of things to take away from this is, one, we can see some spikes, especially from new members that join perhaps for certain reasons or certain events. And you can almost see that this is a weekly cadence, where in the fall we were doing a number of boutiques to drive our member base up. But what I want to specifically talk about is what happens on Black Friday or around these holiday times. So like most retailers, the holiday period is a very important time for us, certainly for sales, but also because we can get an influx of new members. And what we, again, try to do is retain those members and turn them into super buyers for us. Teach them about the site, how it works, get them the tools that they need, and provide to them an experience that's going to get them to come back, of course, at our 11 and 3 o'clock launches, but also throughout the whole day. Find those little 30-second, 1-minute, 2-minute opportunities to go in and find a deal that's right for them. So as I said, this is an interactive dashboard. What I can do is look at, well, what happens with these folks that arrived on Black Friday. So this little camel here is Black Friday is this day here, and then Cyber Monday is the other bump of this chart. So what this interactivity does is allow the end user to click on any data point in the top chart and then see what were the specific boutiques that these members actually visited on that day. Now, we're not showing you all of our information, so unfortunately I'm not giving you the boutique names, and in subsequent charts you're not going to actually see the hard numbers, but the visualizations themselves should provide you with the context and how an end user would go about doing some analysis on this group. So when we look at the second chart here, we're looking again at volume of visits, but we've also done some categorization of the sales themselves, the boutiques. And you can see here when I clicked on all of the members who visited on Black Friday, that this one particular boutique, which was called Awesome Brand, has a dramatically large amount of visits coming to that boutique versus the others. And we've categorized the others as sort of a general route boutique, so it's our typical sale. We had holiday-specific sales naturally running at this time, and then we had other sales where we're actually driving, it's deep discounts. So we might have a percentage off or a price point reflected in the name of the boutique. So interesting that this one brand is driving all of this traffic. When we look at just the folks, the members that joined that day, that boutique is an enormous amount, well over 50% of all of the visits, all of the boutique visits that occurred by this group, those that joined on Black Friday, went to this specific brand. So we can begin to see that there's something that's separating this group of members apart from the rest of those that shopped on Black Friday. So our next step would be, okay, well, what happened to this group after Black Friday and after this particular sale? Did they stick around? Are they interested in other brands that we're offering at different times? Well, bring us to our next visualization or set of visualizations, where we're looking at specifically members that joined between the Wednesday prior to Thanksgiving and Cyber Monday. So we'll call these our Black Friday members. So our first visualization here is effectively a heat map that looks at what's happened to this group, how often have they come back to the site by day. So we have the months down on the left side and the days of the month across the horizontal axis. So the depth of each blue color here within each one of these cells is an indicator of just sheer volume of members that visited the site on those days. So you can see for this group that joined around the Thanksgiving holiday that the depth of blue across the rest of November And most of the holiday season stayed very strong. So we were able to hold on to this group. They continued to come back. They continued to find sales, and they continued to find things that interested them. But were they just shopping for other folks here, or were they shopping for themselves? Was this a holiday-only pattern that we see, or that we could see? And that actual question is answered in the next few rows of data here, where you can see we start to get lighter in blues. And we see some little bits of activity in the middle of January, and then it starts to even slow down more, where in February, you could almost make the argument that we've lost these folks. They're not coming back. We look at the chart below, we actually are seeing, of this time period, the percentage of the types of boutiques that these folks visited. Now, you recall from in the previous visualizations, we saw that awesome brand was a big driver on Black Friday itself. And we see overall that brand continues to be an important brand for those that joined around Black Friday, especially compared to our overall member base. You see 14% of all the boutiques visited, all the visits to boutiques were for this brand versus only 3% for those members that joined outside of this Black Friday window. So again, this is also an interactive chart. So when we look at February, we've gotten very light blue, and then boom, we see this big blue. So you can imagine what happened on this day. And if we click on this day, we can see the boutiques that all the members, the Black Friday members, visited. And we see once again, we had launched another boutique for this brand. And then again, it drove a lot of traffic. Clearly, the brand itself is a big driver for this group. Naturally, we could say, okay, on this particular, for this particular boutique, we know that the brand is a big driver. Well, are there particular styles? So again, we're taking our visitation and going, our visitation data and going a step further and looking at actual conversion rate down to a specific style. And I probably neglected to note this, but when I release this, you'll see that we actually do have data flowing in from today. So again, this data is effectively live. It's coming in 15-minute increments. So again, that gives the analysts and marketing practitioners that capability to look at how their programs are doing in near real time to be able to actually make those tactical decisions of do we double down and spend more? This boutique's not working for this group. Maybe it's a point to actually dial back whatever marketing we were going to be spending for the remainder of the afternoon. These are things that they could not do 6 months ago that they now have the capabilities to do. If we look at conversion then, so what we've done here is to show another map or another visualization to kind of show that next level down, drilling down within this particular boutique. So what we have here is every dot is effectively a style, and we can see on the y-axis we're looking at how many times that style was viewed per member, and on the x-axis we're looking at a conversion rate. So we've obfuscated exactly what we're looking at here to a degree, but we're also looking at the two different colors here. So our gray circles are those visits by members, or those members to that SKU, member visits to that SKU and style that are from all of our members, and the blue dots are those just for this Black Friday cohort. So what we're trying to do here is say, well, okay, we know that the brand is very important to this Black Friday cohort, but are there specific styles within this brand that are more interesting or have are more engaging to the Black Friday cohort? Now, this brand itself is so popular that that when we look at this visualization, we start to see some straight sort of lines, and that's basically a factor of having so many more of our overall member base compared to the Black Friday member base. The Black Friday member base is actually about 10% of this boutique's overall visitation. So we start to see some sample size squirreliness in the data. The takeaway, though, is not so much that these two cohorts are acting differently, but more that we have that capability to do so. And an end user is able to just click on any particular particular style and actually see those results for that style. Again, we had never been able to show a conversion rate down to an individual product. We would always roll things up down to either a day level or a boutique level. So now that we do style, another way to sort of look at our member base and how they interact with our platform is to look at the devices or the screen types that they actually are looking and viewing the site, because the experience, and we know that the experience is slightly different. There's things that we can control very well within the app, and there are things that we have less control of when someone's viewing the website via a mobile device through a cellular network, right? So there's latency involved, and the experience can degrade when someone's looking at the site through, say, a mobile device versus the app or a desktop. So what we've done here with this visualization, on the left side we have some information about the particular boutique. And again, we're looking back at that boutique from February 19th for the awesome brand. And we're looking in the chart, the share of visits that are coming from each specific screen type. So we have an award-winning app. We have people viewing through a browser on the desktop and through a browser on a mobile device. The white line here is our overall traffic, which mirrors the overall visits that's down in the left quadrant there, the left corner. So this boutique was open for a number of days, a lot longer than a typical boutique for us. We see how their traffic slows down after people have visited the first day. They've bought what they want to buy. They've seen what's available to them and made that decision to buy or not buy. But the interesting thing here is we see such a large proportion of each day's visits from these Black Friday members coming from the mobile device, so viewing, whether it be Safari or Chrome on their device rather than looking at the app. This stood out to us because we know that our typical behavior is to see a much larger percentage of site traffic coming from the app. So the first question then is, well, do these folks have the app? And that's what we're showing in the chart below, where you see of those that joined in this Black Friday time period, they are about half as likely to have installed or used the app at least once since they joined compared to our overall member base. This is incredibly important to us because we already know that the lifetime value of a member once they've installed the app is dramatically higher than those that don't. So it's a key component to our engagement strategy. It allows us to get better personalization to our members, and it gives an overall better experience for them to find the sales and the deals that are most important to them. So we go one step further and say, okay, well, can I show you a little bit more about why app usage is important other than just telling you? We'll look at this group by hour, and here we have another heat map where on the left side we're showing the hour of the day, and we're showing the volume of visits as the depth of the blue. And we've split these groups into the Black Friday shoppers and all of our other members. So this is all of the traffic since Black Friday. So what we want to look at is what has this group done, and how are they accessing the site, knowing now already that they're much less likely to have the app. So you can see these bands across at the 11 o'clock hour, and to a lesser degree the 3 o'clock hour, where we see when we launch most of our boutiques. Then you start to see something a little bit different when we look at the app visits compared to desktop and mobile and what happens after 8 o'clock. So the workday is done, the TV is on, and the 2-screen, 3-screen time that we have in our living rooms or in our bedrooms starts to reveal itself here, where we see much more activity in these, what I call after hours, in the 8 o'clock plus for folks with the app. In fact, when you look at the sheer volume of visits of those that have the app versus those that don't, when we look at our chart on the right, 300 plus more visitation comes when we have when the member has the app. This is the start of the funnel for us. If we can get folks coming back to the site in an experience that's engaging to them, ideally with the level of customization that suits their buying and their browsing behavior, we can convert that into sales. So I think the journey through here from starting at the top line, here's where we have lots of activity. It's Black Friday, it's Cyber Monday. We have we have this influx of sales and new members, and then diving deeper and getting into who are these members, what drives their visitation, how are they accessing the site, allows our marketers and our practitioners to sort of sum all of this up together to then take action and say, okay, we need to do better for this particular group in getting an app installed. So that becomes a brainstorming session of, well, what else can we do? Can we give them free product? Can we give them an additional discount when they install the app for this particular brand? And the options become a lot greater. They become more specific and targeted and micro-targeted to a certain base, but then the conversion off of those becomes so much more valuable. And in the heart of it, that's what we're able to do now that we weren't ever able to do even 6 months ago. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Eric to kind of wrap up exactly sort of what the key takeaways were from our whole implementation, and look forward to questions afterward. See if we can sneak back to the slide. Audience. Here.
Great, thank you, Matt. I'm going to pivot back to kind of maybe more about the data side of things. On the technical benefit side of things, as we have now built this integrated data platform, and that's really the operative word now. We're no longer thinking about big data or transactional data, small data, unstructured data, et cetera. We're really just thinking about integrated data. So, and it's really been transformative to now have all the data in one place in the right format at the right time. And we're looking at data sets that we didn't even consider adding before, like transforming Excel spreadsheets and loading them into the data platform as well, just to provide additional context for information about our customers. The infrastructure complexity. We have, by moving to the SaaS model, or data warehouse as a service, we're really not spending the time carrying and feeding for very complex data platforms. We're really spending, my data engineers are really spending more of their time really innovating and building solutions for the business that can help them, as Matt just showed you so eloquently, really look at data in different ways and get insights that they couldn't get before. We're not spending time tuning ETL or tuning queries. Our analysts or even the complexity of the environment has gone away. So, with Snowflake solution, it's incredibly powerful, and queries take hours going from hours to seconds now. So we aren't spending time tuning queries nearly as much. I talked earlier about growing with the business. The elasticity of the Snowflake data platform has allowed us to really expand very quickly into a data science platform without having to invest greatly in additional hardware or software. We are also taking advantage of Snowflake's isolation capabilities, which I think you'll hear about in a few minutes, where we have separated the marketing query processing from our ETL processes. So we're no longer competing. We're using the same set of data, but we each have our own compute platform. So we're isolating Tableau queries from marketing queries, from ETL processes, et cetera. And what was, I guess, most surprising is that even in our first year, we've seen a reduction in cost. So it's quote already paid for itself from a hardware and software perspective. Business benefits. So I think you've heard a lot about our ability now to view our customers from a 360 perspective. We're able to see the engagement data, the emails we sent. We actually are bringing in customer service data now as well. What we're doing with that is personalizing emails, right? If we recognize a member is about to churn and, as you saw here, leave the site, maybe we can send them a personalized email and re-engage them. We're doing much more advanced scoring of our members now in our data science practice to infer brand preferences and to personalize the shopping experience. What you also saw, which was very exciting, is really it's not just about our customers, it's about our product that we show as well. And understanding what products are viewed and the conversion rate, if you will, of the product was something we never had before. So now our merchants are able to make better buying decisions, maybe even some better pricing decisions if we're able to do dynamic pricing. We can understand who's seeing which prices and making the purchases. So we have much more comprehensive product information available. Our analysts' productivity, as I mentioned earlier, has gone through the roof. They've been able to now access all the data in one format at the time that they need to and are getting answers in the seconds that they need. Our Tableau analytics, before was constrained by the amount of data we could put onto the Tableau platform. We've unlocked a wealth of information by being able to connect Tableau directly to Snowflake. And as Matt was showing you, there was no smoke and mirrors there. We really were querying right then 1-some billion rows of clickstream activity where we could see exactly which members were doing what at what time. And so we're able to access all the data, not just aggregated or limited time dimensions. The last thing I want to leave everyone with is some recommendations or observations. The data network effect, I call it, right, where the value of the data increases with the number of interconnected data sets. So it's not just getting the data into a data lake and or having it all there. It's the curating and conforming of that data, which leads to the second point, which is that traditional data warehouse and ETL activities are as important as ever. Our data warehouse still serves a vital function, which is to capture all the transactional data. We did not replace that function. That has been serving us well, and that continues to serve us well. We're just shifting the results up into Snowflake. But in Snowflake, we're also doing extensive new ETL. We're taking that raw clickstream activity, which is in JSON format, and converting it once into the structured data that I showed as visually as the funnel. That is all collected and organized in base fact tables as well as aggregates. And I want to highlight that aggregates are as important to us in the new model, not for performance reasons, but really from a being in the right format for the analysts to use. They don't need always the raw click activity. They can sometimes see things aggregated by hour or by day, and that's sufficient for their needs. The last that I want to leave with is that we have one team that, and then an extension with our friends on the analyst side. So with the BI team working with the data team, with our data science team, we're getting the inputs from those two sides to really put the data into the right format. So the data scientists and analysts are spending 80% of their time preparing the data, what they're spending 80% of their time analyzing the data. And so really work best together. We understand what their needs are, and we're making their lives easier from a data perspective. And with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Todd, I believe.
Yes. Thank you, Eric and Matt. I really love customer examples. I think it just brings out the real value that Snowflake can have within an organization. And to me, retail is near and dear to my heart. I came to Snowflake from a very, very large retailer. I actually worked in their mobile shopping team on the retail side of the business, and a lot of the metrics that they were discussing were things that I directly dealt with in my previous role. So very, very interesting stuff. Before we move on to the next, we'll quickly go through this question. Again, we find that almost every organization has a data warehousing or big data initiative. And if you guys could just quickly select, where are you guys at in the process? Are you still kind of trying to understand what the landscape is and looking at the different options? Are you actually actively evaluating potential solutions? Are you in development, having made a choice? Are you developing, or have you moved into production? And we see here that there's a good split here. We've got a good grouping on the production end already running in production, and another group at the very beginning of the path, and others along different stages. So very interesting information. And I'm going to quickly kind of move through what Snowflake architecture is, and then we'll really quickly show how anyone can connect to Snowflake You can get a free trial of Snowflake and a free trial of Tableau and get connected very quickly. But the one thing to note is Snowflake Architecture, so we started about 4.5 years ago, and it was built from scratch. We looked at the traditional architectures of shared disk, shared nothing, a lot of shared code out there between Postgres and MySQL that we could have started with, and we chose to start with a fresh database. It actually took 6 months to get a query running on this new architecture, and we didn't name it until just recently, about 1.5 years ago. Our CTO came up with the name multi-cluster shared data, because the idea was in the cloud we could separate the storage and the compute pieces and have scalable, flexible storage underlying basically unlimited compute as we could continually add compute resources. And so we created this multi-cluster shared data architecture. And from another kind of perspective and looking at it, we used the Snowflake view. Not that that's the name of the company was actually because our founders love to ski and because snowflakes come from the cloud. But the key thing in this architecture is the data is at the heart of everything. But you can have data without any compute running with it. And so you have the ability to just store data in Snowflake. And if the compute goes away, the data still lives. It's always hot, always available. The first thing that they did is they separated the metadata or the information about the data from the data itself. So table definitions and all that other information is stored in a metadata repository that actually has its own set of compute and its own resources, so that metadata operations are completely separated from the data operations. And the default configuration of Snowflake is, looking at a virtual warehouse, which is really compute in Snowflake. So a warehouse is a compute cluster in Snowflake, and this would be your default configuration. And at this point, you could have then users that would access the data. And a database in Snowflake is really different than it would be in other systems. Because we're a cloud-based system, a database is really just a container for a set of data. So you can do it for different data sets coming from different sources, or whatever mechanism you want to use to separate that data. You can apply permissions across databases. And so here you have a set of users that are, in this case, you could have finance users who are using a virtual warehouse to query the data. And because we can separate different elements of compute within the system without impacting the storage, we have then a virtual warehouse for loading data. So we can load data with a separate virtual warehouse, and loading will have no impact on storage, which is something that the Rulala team called out as a benefit to them, because their end users aren't impacted by data loading in the system. And so as you kind of go through the different use cases in your organization, you can either combine resources within a single warehouse, or you can spread out the warehouses. And what's really important is that the data underlying doesn't need to be replicated. If each of these systems were to grab the exact same data, the storage system would scale out to handle that. Now down here in the lower right-hand corner, you see this box with a virtual warehouse, a special virtual warehouse. We call that a multi-cluster warehouse. So as usage scales out on a BI system, you can actually leverage a multi-cluster warehouse to automatically scale to handle that and to create a very concurrency-heavy system where the users aren't impacted by other users on the system. And then, perhaps you have a data scientist that wants to run a very large query, and we often have to isolate them because their queries could take down the entire system. And in this case, the only thing that would be impacted by the large queries that the data scientist is running is his warehouse. And you'll notice that each of these warehouses can be of different sizes. So a cluster within a warehouse is a certain number of servers in Snowflake, and that virtual warehouse options allow you to quickly and easily select the size that's appropriate to you. You don't have to think about it in terms of server count. We have size, we call it t-shirt sizing, extra small to triple extra large, based on the data that you're working with. And then lastly, I always like to share the test dev use case. So, especially if you're running heavy concurrency testing, you don't want to impact the production system. Snowflake allows you to isolate extra workloads for test and dev in a different system. And so while any of these could be combined into a single warehouse, you do have the option of spreading the workload across multiple warehouses. And how that looks from an architecture perspective, today we're deployed in Amazon. We are built to be cloud agnostic for any cloud, but today we're in Amazon. The storage is in object storage, so it's not tied to servers. It's a completely separate object, and basically you can add as much data as you want. There are no volumes. There are no limits. You can just keep adding data, and the Snowflake storage charges are just basically a pass-through of that S3 cost. And so it's very inexpensive to store lots of data in Snowflake. Then you layer on top of that the compute, and it's dedicated compute for you that you can specify how large you want, and it'll run and it'll have access to the data based on the user profile is how the data access is controlled. And sitting on top of this then is a, rather than just a data and a scanning engine, it's a full database. So we're handling all the concurrencies being managed, the consistency of the database so that you're not doing dirty reads. It's all managed in the service layer of Snowflake, and Snowflake actually manages that layer entirely for you as a customer. We're a little short on time here, so as we get going, I am going to just show a very brief connection to Tableau. So if you were to run Tableau desktop here, I'm going to share my screen. Very quickly, you could get connected to Snowflake. All you need to do is have your Snowflake instance here, a username, and then the password. And at that point, you sign in. Hold on just a second. I mistyped my password, the challenge of doing this live. Signing in, you get connection to the database. Here, again, I mentioned you can have multiple warehouses. In this case, we have 4 different warehouses. In fact, we've designated one for Tableau. That's our compute that we're going to use. We're going to use a Snowflake sample data set that every instance of Snowflake that gets spun up has access to. So you could spin up a free and have access to this data. I would pick my schema then. Based on my information, we have some TPCH data that we've loaded. And I can go ahead then, drag my tables, create a join from my order to my customer. If I wanted to see information at that level, it's automatically going to join. I know in my data that I have a customer key and a customer key in my customer table. I can then update my data to see what data comes in, and then I can build graphics on that. And again, as it does the update here, it's going to pull all the data. I can see the data right in Snowflake, go into the worksheet, and start building out my dashboard. So it's that quick and easy to get started with Snowflake, get connected to Snowflake from Tableau. And so I want to, again, take the time to thank everybody for their attendance today. We're going to take the last few minutes here and answer a few questions. And the first question that I'd had is, it's for the Rue La La team. How many people are in your data science organization? Kind of, how do you guys organize yourselves to work with this data?
So our data science team is kind of the newest addition. We have 2 engineers, data scientists, I should say, 1 product manager, and then just lead and QA functions. We're organized. They're somewhat autonomous, but they're able to leverage and utilize all of the data that we've talked about in our Snowflake data platforms. So they really have a different set of business problems they're trying to solve. Customer lifetime value, RFM, RFE scores, just to name a few. And so they use the data in a very different way than our other use cases with Tableau and whatnot. So they have some slightly different tools that they use. I don't know if that answers it fully.
Okay, great. Thanks. We have another question from Tom Carroll here. What methodology did you use for designing your Snowflake structures? And did this require you to redesign what you'd already built in your other systems?
So we're very true to the dimensional modeling design paradigm for our Snowflake data warehouse. And no, we really just took our traditional data warehouse design best practices, and in all the cases of shifting the DWH data up to Snowflake, it really was a identical replica design-wise. And as we brought in the unstructured data, we just made sure that we normalized out the dimensions from all the clickstream activities, so we understood what devices, what time zones, what activity types were being performed. So we really just kind of extended the star schema, or to paraphrase it, or to overuse the word Snowflake. We do most of our modeling is Snowflake based.
Okay, and I appreciate all. Go ahead.
And then just some custom Python scripting to orchestrate.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we appreciate all the questions. I'm going to get one last question. You guys mentioned that you still do some Tableau extracts. What kind of drives the difference between the data that you are querying in live mode versus what you're using extracts for?
So really our traditional Oracle data warehouse did not have the performance capabilities to meet the interactive needs that most of our Tableau users have. So that's really driven our use of Tableau extracts. Honestly, as we complete the migration to Snowflake as our data source, I see us eliminating all of our Tableau extracts and really going live with all of our queries. We've seen phenomenal performance out of Tableau and Snowflake in conjunction. And as I mentioned earlier, it's still important to do data extracts. So just because I have 1.2 billion rows of data, I don't always need that. So we're actually spending time to invest in building out some aggregates that are still Tableau friendly and give the people the analysis capabilities, but don't necessarily need that raw grain of data. But everything's going to be live.
Well, thank you guys so much. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say, as a general rule of thumb, 100,000 rows of data, Tableau data extract. If your source data is billions rows of data, go back to the live query.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Great advice. I've worked with that a lot. I want to just take a second and give everybody thanks for coming. I really want to thank our team from Rulala. They really, a great presentation. I love seeing customer data. Thanks to Jeff from Tableau for joining us. And again, we're at the hour. I think we're going to hang on for a minute or two to answer some questions. But for those who have to drop, please feel free to check out snowflake.net. You can get a free account in Snowflake, a self-service account where you can set up and access Snowflake. You can download Tableau. Like I showed in my demo, you can very quickly connect and start working with your own data. And you can work with the Snowflake or the Tableau teams to help get your data loaded and working. So we really appreciate your time. And I'm going to grab one other question that came in, which was, as you were doing your analysis, some of the insights were pretty obvious and confirmed what you already knew. But were there anything non-intuitive that you found, some surprises that you found as you analyzed the data?
I think there's always surprises. I think there's always a balance of like, okay, our gut, yeah, this is confirming what we already know. I think the scale of the differences when we kind of set up these dashboards, the scale of the Black Friday shoppers and how few of them, one, have the app, and two, how driven they were for this particular brand. I mean, it is a popular brand for us, but the degree to which they are almost, I want to say exclusively, but they are really driven by this brand is more eye-opening than I probably would want it to be, because there's definitely a fear that, like, are they one-trick pony, so to speak, and can we broaden their reasons for why they come to us beyond this one particular brand. So I think not terrible surprises, but certainly the scale of the difference for this group was surprising.
Thank you very much. And one more question on the Snowflake side. Somebody asked, is a virtual warehouse the same as a data mart? And in reality, it is in the sense that the compute is isolated, but the great part about it with Snowflake is you don't have to copy that data. So when I work with data marts in other organizations, we had to copy the data into the data mart to get that separation of compute. And for Snowflake, the beauty of it is you can create additional compute, but you don't have to move the data or copy the data. You just point it at the data that everybody shares the same data, but you can have different compute clusters. So really gives us that value. We've hit a point where we're going to let you guys go. We really appreciate, again, everybody who joined and everybody who stayed with us. And please feel free to reach out. We will kind of go through some of the questions and try to email you as we have chances, because I know we didn't get to all of this. Please note that we will be sharing the recording. I'd have to check on if we can share the actual slides, but definitely this information will be made available to everybody who attended, and we thank you for your time.